Just grooving along here at Gulfstream Park. In fact, we are off and running the new month of June. Happy June 1st, everybody, and a happy opening to this Twilight Friday racing series running through the end of August right here at GP. Ron Nicoletti, Jason Blewett alongside. Good to have you with us as we settle in from our clubhouse studios on a Fast and Firm Friday.
Yeah, you said it right there. Fast and Firm Friday. Beautiful day out there. A little warm on the warm side, but you expect that in South Florida. Rainbow Six starting to build, and as you mentioned, our first Twilight card with this 2:15 p.m. post.
Absolutely. 9 races today. A little short and sweet in the neighborhood here in Hallandale Beach, and already quite a nice crowd downstairs in Silks, our state-of-the-art simulcasting center. Should be a nice buzz and a good amount of energy throughout the afternoon in the stands locally at Gulfstream Park. As we come out of a Thursday card here, I'll tell you, it was a rough end to the month of May for the chalk players. Just one winning favorite yesterday afternoon in those 10 races we ran, so we'll see what shakes out on this 9-race card in which we get you up to speed, and obviously Ronnie and myself will be discussing who we like, who we don't like, and why that might be the case over the next half hour or so. But it all begins a little after 2 p.m. on this June the 1st with that opening super high five and a pretty solid turf race to get the action underway. I'll also have a ticket, a 50-cent early pick 5, totaling about 16 bucks. In fact, it was 16 bucks. I'll have that coming up in just a couple of minutes. And as you were saying, Ronnie, we're just under about 188,000 in that Friday Rainbow Six.
Yeah, kicking off in race number 4 this afternoon will be well over $200,000. So only a 20-cent wager. And of course, we end the day with our final pick 5. And Jason will have a ticket in just a little while to show you that. And should be a fun day of racing.
Absolutely. And it's a battle down the line of the Nicoletti and the Blewett best bets in race number 8. You like the speed of early entry. I'm going to an old class horse, another Florida bred in the race, much like early entry, named French Quarter, who's taking a big drop for trainer David Fox. And I'm hoping the drop wakes him up this afternoon. But again, we have that to debate down the line in race number 8. Let's dive right into it on this opening Twilight Friday, first day of June here at GP. And we want to start out in the winner's circle with all of you. And I'm hoping that's the case with this $16 early pick 5 play that sees me use, well, 2 horses in this opening leg. I am a big fan of the number 3 El Camp, and I think he either sits up close on right off the lead or he's on the lead this afternoon beneath jockey Tyler Gaffalione. I use both him and the number 5 Gray Dude, who I think is the best closer. I know Ronnie likes the 6 Paradise Island, and we'll have a live shot, or at least a live replay of his last race when he ran into some traffic here a few weeks ago for trainer George Weaver. Just the single for me in race number 2. I am a fan of the 4 Don't Believe Watch, Ronnie, and I'm not sure you're going to get second choice status, as is the case on the line. I thought that horse would be a clear favorite for Gilberto Zerpa.
Yeah, I didn't use him. I used him further down the ticket, but as I looked back, maybe you'll be right in that spot.
Yep, and then we've got a third race in which, to be honest, I think the 3 Don't Overlook and the 7 Can't Take It With You. In their current form, they might just simply be a little faster than the competition on the turf in Friday's third race. The 4th race sees trainer Augustin Bizarra hold a really strong hand. You want to talk about pocket aces. He's got 2 in that field of 6, including Brandt and the likely favorite More Illusions, who if the 7-horse More Illusions runs back to his debut, they're probably all running for second money. And you get a real sense, when you go 4 deep in a particular race, you get a sense of how wide open I think that race is. And as far as the cash out to this early pick 5, there is just a ton going on in the 5th race. I think between drop downs, well-connected horses, trainer changes, I mean, the gang's all there in race number 5 as far as maybe some crafty handicapping angles.
Including my long shot of the day at 12-1, which we'll be telling you about.
Who's that?
That is Pointing Lee.
Pointing Lee? Oh, Pointedly, actually.
Pointedly,
yeah,
yeah.
Number 2 for trainer Reed Nagel coming back from Tampa Bay Downs. All right, sounds good with jockey Sammy Camacho. So we do begin, and there's just something nice about starting any particular racing day on the turf, and we do have that in spades here at Gulfstream today with some Florida breds, and these are non-winners of 1 optional claimer types in the opener at a 2-turn turf mile. And taking a step back, aside from the favorites just not being up to snuff and only winning 1 of 10 yesterday, I feel as though, when I went back and looked, the turf played very fair and even, whether you were on the lead or trying to rally from off the pace.
And it's been that way for the last few days that we've been on the turf. We noticed we had some rain, different conditions, and it looks like always played fair along with the main track. So there's no real bias that we can tell you about. So if you like a horse that comes on the lead, comes from off the pace or on the lead, pay attention.
It's a real battle of the white bridles in the Friday First here on the turf. We've got trainer Todd Pletcher, and a long time ago, a former assistant to Todd in trainer George Weaver knocking heads, along with Armando de la Cerda, who's in the midst of a very tight battle in the Gulfstream Park trainers race. In fact, as we enter the Friday action, you've got three trainers, Armando one of them, battling it out towards the top spot, in fact, with 12 wins apiece, and the Pletcher barn right behind them with 11. Now, in the case of George Weaver, he's got the number 6 Paradise Island, and Ronnie can elaborate a little more about this horse, a little further as to why he likes this gelding by Treasure Beach. But let's show you this one's last start back Kentucky Derby weekend on Saturday, May the 5th. In fact, this one was Derby Day. This horse was not in the hunt early on. Black Silks currently last after we had him highlighted, and I don't think he was going to win. In fact, he's certainly not going to be able to cut down the horse on the lead, and he's bankable. But as you watch Paradise Island try to split horses, the number 2 Scrapper drifts in ever so slightly, and any momentum, any chance that Paradise Island had to potentially finish second behind He's Bankable evaporated just like that. A trouble trip, even though he wasn't going to win the race.
And I like the horse on the drop. He's dropping into the allowance optional claiming ranks after following his maiden win up at Saratoga last summer. Versus stakes competition, including that trip we just showed you, and that was in the English Channel. George Weaver, Nick Warr is named to ride. Like this horse this afternoon. A little surprised he's not going to be the favorite. I don't know if he's going to be the favorite when the smoke clears. I'm not quite sure. I thought he would be.
Oh, yeah, no, I figured El Camp might be a slight favorite because of the Gaffleone and the Pletcher connection, but it would be close between every bit of the 3, 5, and 6. I mean, Grey Dude's coming out of a good effort. In fact, he got no help last time out as JoJo's Dream handled the mile here on May 11th and wired that field. That includes the number 1 Famous Fact, who won't be 11-1, but will certainly be a higher price in the rematch with the 5 Grey Dude. And just wrapping up the opener, I think the number 3 Elk Camp will either be on the lead or tracking the number 2 Paco and Sacco. That's the trip he wants. And in hindsight, 7-horse field, the post really hurt him last time. He wasn't able to tuck. He wasn't able to get over. And just a pretty taxing trip when you're hung out there on the turf, kind of stalking, chasing the pace 3 wide. I think he gets a better go of it this afternoon beneath Gaffleone, who does enter this Twilight Friday card, tops in the jockey standings here locally at 43 wins. Let's move on to the main track, listed as fast. Friday 2nd does kick off that early pick 4. We have got $6,250 claimers, and these are indeed fillies and mares meeting on the dirt at 3/4 of a mile. We're going with the 6-pack, and I've just been so impressed since I moved to Florida about 13 months ago with trainer Gilberto Zerpa and the work that he's done with the 4 Don't Believe Watch. I know this horse comes out of a 4-horse field and wasn't able to get the money. 5, not really her game. I think she's a little better with a little more real estate, and she'll get that today as you, of course, go right next door to the 5, Dancing Noel.
Yeah, Dancing Noel moved to the Steve Boudou barn via the claim after responding to a drop-down in competition. Her 3rd victory in 5 races. Miguel Vasquez in the saddle today. Horse knows where the winner's circle is. Certainly with Miguel Vasquez, I just thought this horse, maybe I'll get a little bit of a price with number 5, Dancing Noel. Just been so consistent, and that's hard to find when you're talking about this level of competition.
Well, yeah, she's got that early speed. Now, you would think Armando de la Cerda, not an easy guy to claim off of per se, but Steve Boudou doesn't get cute, wheels this horse right back for the 62.50. I also wanted to give a little acknowledgement to the number 3, Beautiful Alley, who I will try to split the 2 favorites with in second in my 2nd race exacta. I just have become a fan of this filly. She obviously runs at the bottom or maybe at certain points a step up from the bottom, but she is a very consistent, hard-trying filly, and she was really game last time out. Going into that race Preakness week on May 18th, it was a case of her in a 10-horse field against 9 rivals. The question, would she finally break through, seemingly running for an eternity in that 2 lifetime claiming condition? She turns for home. She's ready to take the lead here, but then way out in the middle of the track comes Devolta, who made a run of it and made it pretty close, but Beautiful Alley, she's a game horse. She might not win a Grade 1, but again, I've warmed up to her because she's just one of these really honest fillies, and I think she's got a chance to come back here, Ronnie, and finish up very gamely at 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, she's got enough speed in this compact field with something to run at. She has a target, so maybe she'll get the job done. And we said this a lot of times. She finally got that 2 lifetime condition. Does she jump up and get her our next condition this afternoon, but I'm going with Dancing Noel, and I threw in the 6 Fame Glory you had in 4th.
All right, race number 3 as we head back to the turf. Friday's card continues naturally with a field of 7 in this 3 and up $30,000 to $25,000 claimer. You can scratch the number 2, and a scratch that is certainly going to be felt in terms of win price, because some of the other major players and contenders on paper, like the number 3, Don't Overlook, and the 7, Can't Take It With You, they will come down a little bit in price because Without Remorse had a chance in this race. The more I looked around, Ronnie, I said it with my early pick 5. My opinion, maybe it's not the strongest in the world, but I feel as though the David Fox horse, second off the claim, and Don't Overlook, and your top pick off the claim for Steve Kosaris and the 7, Can't Take It With You, I feel just recently they've just been running faster races than the others.
Yeah, the 7 horse Can't Take It With You, as you mentioned, changes barns, goes to the Steve Kosaris barn after that claim. Drew clear to defeat a pair of next out winners. Want to show you stand on Steve Kosaris. First start after the claim, all levels on the turf. He's 6 for 30, 20%, 57% in the money, and he's got a positive return of investment of $2.62. But you're right, I couldn't really separate, the 2 horses, the 7 or the 3. I had to go in an exacta box in there.
If you're playing the early 5, the early 4, do you use both of them?
Absolutely.
Do you give anybody else a look?
I threw in Remember the Main, who's going to wear blinkers this afternoon. First start since finishing 4th, was the favorite that afternoon. Behind Can't Take It With You back on April 15th. Louis Ramirez tabs Jonathan Gonzalez to ride. I think that horse has a shot to be in there, but I'm going with those 2 on top. Can't Take It With You and Don't Overlook.
All right, and we want your Rainbow 6 on top. No doubt about that. We'll catch up with our friends over at Express Bet up at Adena Springs, and we've got a lot more of this Twilight Friday Gulfstream Today coming your way after this quick timeout.
At Express Bet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. Express Bet. We are racing.
Coming down to the finish with Fort Martin to catch him. They're not going to catch him. Fort Martin, the winner. He went clear at the start, and he's coming out, turning handspring. Forlani, brilliant in the Stephen Monster. What else? The red remembering the top traffic. Forlani gets deep, nose and nose to the wire. Forlani has won it.
June the 1st here at Gulfstream Park, and a big welcome back to this live edition of Gulfstream Today from our clubhouse studios. Ronnie and Jason with you, and keep it locked here. You've got the best seat in the house as we focus in, and we certainly want to be having the best seat in the money room this afternoon with a $188 or thereabouts in the Rainbow 6 carry.
Yeah, I'm going to show you my ticket this afternoon, and I was really confused with this 4th race, so I went 4 deep. I think that's the logical 4 contenders in that race. I did not want to get knocked out. As I mentioned a little earlier, my long shot comes in race number 5, the number 2, Pointedly, and then you go down to race number 8. That's where my single is, and Jason said his best bet is in there. It's not early entry just on the class drop, and Kathleen O'Connell had a single somewhere, 4 deep in the 7th, and in the 7th, and then in the 9th race, just 2 deep, 5-7. I wish I could have gone a little deeper in the 9th race.
Well, race number 9, your point is well taken there. That is our first 2-year-old turf maiden race of the season here in South Florida, and needless to say, all of those youngsters will be trying the grass, and many of them debuting for the first time, so there is quite a bit of guesswork to go on, and I would imagine going in, the majority of people, and I'm among the masses, the 5, My Whippersnapper for Mark Cassie, and the 7 entirely for Jonathan Thomas, those appear, again, the assumption they'll be the livest, quote-unquote, in the race.
You would think so, but I got a stat on Mark Cassie that might make you change your mind, but we'll show you that a little later on.
All right, race number 4, again, opening leg of this Friday Rainbow, just a 9-race affair here on June the 1st, and as I had mentioned briefly at the top of the show with my early pick 5 ticket, looks like trainer Augustin Bizarra. I mean, both his horses, he's got a third of the field to begin with, and they both have to go out there and show up and run. But between the 2, Brandt, who's already been the mile, and the 7, More Illusions, who's untested at a mile because his debut was at 6 furlongs. They just look like they might tower over the others.
I just didn't have any confidence in anybody in the field, thus going 4 deep in my Rainbow Six. But you're right. If the race goes through, absolutely through those horses. I threw El Zeus on, made a 3-bid and finished 3rd. That was on that sealed, sloppy track. So I didn't want to get knocked out because I've noticed that when you get horses like this, it's not consistent. Maybe somebody jumps up and scores. So 4 deep for me in that Rainbow Six.
All right, this is kind of, and I guess somewhat fitting for South Florida, a bit of, and we say it all the time with these 9-race cards, even though they're a little rare. It's kind of like an early bird, late pick 5. And a friendly reminder to all of you, don't forget the sequence begins in race number 5 today as we get back on the turf with Friday's 5th, a 3-and-up filly mare, $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claimer. As I had said with my early pick 5, I didn't use as many. I went 4 deep in the early 5 because I did not have a single in the mix. I had a trim somewhere, and the 5th race I trimmed it down from 4 to 3. But there's just a ton going on, and Ronnie and I will elaborate in just a few short seconds here about who we like and why in the 5th race this afternoon. Race number 6 really centers on, don't you think Payton is the one that they've got to beat, as he is one of a couple of key drop downs, but if he runs close to his A race, he's supposed to win.
Yeah, the only one I thought had a shot in there was the 8 Squadron A, but I'm agreeing with you. I have Payton right on top of my ticket.
And Pletcher, Todd Pletcher's got a couple of horses in the 7th, the returning outrun off a year-plus layoff, and I think the 10 Mr. Stark, who, if you're not aware, has one of the coolest background stories of, I think, any horse currently stabled in South Florida. He'll go from the outside post, and I think he's going to run very well for trainer Stanley Gold. A couple of old class Florida breds, both from the same crop as 7-year-olds in Early Entry and French Quarter, find their way on my late pick 5 ticket in the 8th race. A good race to close things out on the dirt. And again, much like Ronnie, I'm thinking the 5 and 7 for Cassie and JT are going to be the live firsters in race number 9. I also included the 1 Nairobi because that horse is by Tisway, and he has really turned into I'd say almost a hidden good thing on the turf. It seems like his offspring tend to really, really excel on the turf, and when they win, you can get them at a price. So Nairobi, one I'm including in race number 9 this afternoon. But let's, Ronnie, work our way through this opening leg of Friday's late pick 5 with a field of 9 with this $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claimer, and these are 3-and-up fillies and mares. As you work your way through, you've got Motivate, second time out for Jonathan Thomas with Tyler. The 4 Tropicality didn't run well last time at 2 to 5. She's dropping, and she's a better horse than her last race, May 10th. Leading trainer at the meet, or co-leading trainer, Armando de la Cerda, sending out the 7 Sunfest, who's back on her preferred surface. You've got 2 runners in the race for George Weaver and Lady Cavalier, and his firster by Congrats and Miss Loyalty. And then, lo and behold, you've also got your long shot in the race for trainer Reed Nagel in Pointed Lee. This, for a 50, maiden 50 on the turf this time of the year, I think this race came up as tough and deep as it possibly could.
Yeah, and I felt that way, and I wanted to find a horse that I thought runs as well as anybody in this race, and you'll get a price on, and that's the number 2 Pointed Lee, half-sister to Grade 1 Stakes place Engagingly, dropping to this 50 level after shipping up to Tampa, finishing 3rd. It was a good maiden special weight race at this distance. Reed Nagel claimed it 2 starts back. Sammy Camacho in the saddle. There's nothing wrong. If you look at the past performances, no one really jumps off the page out you here, and I think this horse has as much shot to win it as anybody else, and I knew I was going to get a price, and I love picking those long shots.
Is that one of the keys to the Tampa shippers, to find a race where they just seem to fit pretty snugly here?
And I respect certain trainers up there like Reed Nagel that come down here and they know where to put their horses, and I'm a big fan of Engaging Lee. I remember that Grade 1 Stakes place horse, so that was one of my thought processes, like the breeding. See if we can get it done here with the number 2.
All right, filly by point of entry, certainly well posted, and we've seen a bit of traction over the last few days here at Gulfstream Park for jockey Sammy Camacho, who clearly is one of the big dogs during the wintertime over at Tampa. He's won a few races, and I'd imagine feeling more confident than he was, say, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Now, the 5 Motivate likely going to be favored. It's a case of the connections, the second-time starter, the drop down off an effort first time out that was fairly lackluster, and this daughter of Uncle Mo didn't get bet all that strongly at 5 to 1, over 5 to 1 in that that 8-horse field, but I thought she'd likely improve this afternoon. I also think you'll get a better effort out of the 4 Tropicality. I have no idea what happened last time out at 2 to 5. She just never got out of first gear.
Yeah, they're going to add blinkers this afternoon. Finished 4th. Was the odds-on choices you mentioned earlier. Again, special weight competition going 7.5. They were talking about this horse all day long and just didn't spot. They drop her right down.
Right.
They put the blinkers on. They're putting the Apprentice Romero Ramsey on. So we'll see if all those things equate to a winning effort this afternoon. I'm going with that long shot.
Race number 6 back on the main track. Friday's card on this first day of June continues. If you're just joining us, welcome to this live edition of Gulfstream today. We bring on the dated bottom level 6250 claimers, and this one is for horses that have not won a race since December 1st. Again, a race on the main at 7 that really does center upon, to me, 2.5 horses who are getting fairly precipitous drops in claiming price, and none more important than the number 1 Payton, who does have a rider change to Jose Alvarez. I'm hoping this horse, combination of him maybe just needing a little rest. What, he run 5 times in about 13 weeks? And before this layoff of about 65 days, he had run 2 separate times, twice, within a 6-day span. So I'm hoping he just needed a little bit of a breather here as he's in for the 62.
And you look at his last race, he finished 5th behind Blings Express, Social Roy, and that $10,000 optional claimer back on March 29th. If those horses were in this race, they'd be 1 to 9 each. So I don't know if that, I think this is the horse to beat.
Squadron A is a horse I'm going to try to beat, as you could see in the exacta. When I said this race is about 2.5, 3 drop downs, I think the 5, 20, and 4. Granted, he hasn't looked like the same horse since his 4-year-old campaign, but I do think he might be eligible to wake up getting back against this type, or at least sprinting on the dirt against a field where he's running at the bottom. So I'm going to go 1-5 here, and my vig of the race is potentially taking a shot against the 8 Squadron A. We've got a stat here with trainer Marcus Vitale, and I do think these numbers fly in the face of how you might expect these numbers to play out. This is a barn that can play the claiming game really well here in South Florida and does a good job placing horses, claiming horses, improving horses. However, you would think drop downs might be almost automatic with this barn. Not the case here with Squadron A. As you can see, the 5 for 33 and a very short return of investment. I had pulled the stat when this horse ran last time, dropping from 30 to 12.5, and needless to say, he was a non-factor checking in a well-beaten 4.
Well, that's a good stat. And as the race goes through Payton, but now you make that decision. Do you use Squadron A on the bottom of your ticket? So we'll see how that plays out, but that's a good stat for people to look at.
We had the gals earlier. In fact, Ronnie's long shot on the turf with those maiden 50 claimers in the 5th. We bring on the Colts and Geldings. Same condition here, going that 2-turn mile on the grass in Friday's 7th race. So 2/3 of this Friday card complete as we get on to this crew of $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claimers. Race certainly going in, whether you like one, whether you like both, whether you like neither, it centers around trainer Todd Pletcher. He's got to lead off the discussion in the form of the 7 Outrun, and then he's got the firster right next door by Candy Ride in the number 8 Charming Billy. I'm going to take the 7 Outrun, even though clearly things have gone a little sideways with this horse. He has not run since mid-October of 2016. So we're talking a lengthy layoff here as this well-bred son, and it's more of a dirt pedigree, but he drops down in class as they are looking to just find the right level. I'm hoping he handles the turf today. I'll take the 7 Outrun.
Well, I want to show you 2 different stats on Todd Pletcher. Put the glasses on for these. You pick the right one if you go with the stats. Outrun, layoff of 180 days plus. Got horses going from maiden special weight to maiden claiming on the turf. He's 3 for 14, 21%. He's 43% in the money. He's got a solid $1.74 return of investment. Now go next door to Charming Billy. Todd Pletcher, first-time starters, maiden claiming in turf routes. He's 3 for 12, 23 for 27, 12%, 28% in the money with a $2.20 return of investment. What I wanted to do was show you both different stats with Todd Pletcher. Looks like he does a little better with horses coming off a layoff that have run before.
Well, I got a stat for you. 6 months or greater on the sidelines, and this works for the 7 Outrun. Maiden special weight to maiden claiming in general. You narrowed it down to just turf, which I certainly get why you did that. Overall, he's 11 for 25 for 44%. Turf, percentage drops down a bit. Again, the question marks, the red flags, the potential negatives, they're very, very prominent and very obvious with the 7 outrun. In the end, I didn't know where else to go. And I want to give a pop before we get on to your top pick to the number 10, Mr. Stark, who's got the familiar white and green colors of Arundel Farm. And this horse comes out of a decent effort. He didn't get much pace to close into. In fact, as he comes out of a narrow loss here on May the 6th, do note the horse that wired the field, Paco and Sacco, is returning in today's first race. In fact, he's the 2 horse at a current 17-1. But Mr. Stark, despite the fact he was a little one-paced and had no real serious punch in the race, I'm rooting for him because he is such an oddity. This is a story here, even if you're a whiz and an expert in breeding, you might not know who Lava Boy, the sire of Mr. Stark, is. He's the teaser stallion up at Arundel. He's an unraced younger brother to Lava Boy, or Lava Man, rather. And Arundel said, you know what, he's such a good-looking horse, let's give him a shot to breed. This is the only living foal by Lava Boy, and this horse can run a little bit. I think he's going to run well for maiden 50.
Well, they put the blinkers on him last time out, and he certainly improved with that performance you just showed, and it's a great story with Mr. Stark. Got him on my ticket.
Yep, no doubt. Now, what's the deal with Service's horse, the 5, Epic Love, who is yet another, not as long as Outrun, mind you, but this is a horse that has not run since October 1st, last autumn.
Well, he's dropping to the 50 level. First start since Dueling Fleet. He finished second. It was a 1.70-mile maiden special race. It was up at Parks last October. John Service just having a great meet. Doesn't start a lot of horses. He's over 24, about 24% with this type of layoff. Romero Ramsey in the saddle this afternoon. Just thought that maybe this was the sneaky in the race. I'm going to use all of these horses as you saw in my ticket. I thought this was a wide open affair.
Yeah, both turf maiden races, the maiden 50s, that is, for the gals earlier and the Colts in race number 7. They came up really intriguing, very deep, bettable races, to say the least. As you fire away, we hope, take the rubber band off and send it in on this June 1st. Let's move on to our 8th race. We have one more dirt race for you here as we head down the stretch. Late double begins with this 40K optional claimer, and you've got some back class horses in this race. In fact, back class for days. None more impressive as far as overall lifetime resumes than Ronnie's best bet, the number 1 early entry. We've got to go back a little bit. This is a horse that, again, had been off for well over a year, about 13, close to 13 and a half months before running here. Derby weekend on May 6th. The good early entry, though, boy, this horse is a talented sprinter. And we'll backtrack to his last victory, in fact. This was in late January of 2017 when he won the Sunshine Million Sprint, defeating, I mean, you talk about a deep field that he took down that afternoon. Beat Delta Bluesman and Awesome Banner. I mean, those are 2 horses, 2 of the top Florida-bred sprinters at the time in training.
Yeah, I mean, he was in top form at that particular time. Now coming back, I know if that performance, just remembered his back class. That's if you saw my Rainbow Six a little earlier, that's why I singled early entry today.
Does the race go through him as far as his early speed? What won you over with making him your best bet?
What won was he's dropping to the 40 level after returning from that 13-month layoff, as you mentioned. He stalked the pace. He finished 4th, and he finished 4th behind a horse that's really been in great form, and I've been impressed with. That's Classic Rock. That was in the $75,000 Jeblar, and I really like the work that Kathleen O'Connell does. You're getting leading rider, I think you said today, Tyler Gaffigan. They keep changing every couple of races.
Yep.
And the saddle, and that was my thought process. And if you're going to single, this sounds like all the things put together might be a nice single.
No, that early speed may really separate early entry from everybody else in this race. And hands down, even though we're probably not dealing with the prime years early entry, this race, from his early speed and his back class and the connections, this race definitely, he is the nucleus, and everybody has to fall in line and adjust behind early entry. You've also got some back class, to say the least, with the 6 French Quarter, and I've had a thing for this horse because, again, he is such a paradox in the sense that he's not a turf horse, yet he's by Shakespeare, and I was such a big Shakespeare fan when he was running. He was very injury-prone, but very, very good, and I enjoyed writing about him a little bit on my in my handicapping page, which is up on Gulfstreampark.com and in the track program this afternoon. It's the drop I know we're not dealing with French Quarter in his prime either. I'm hoping third off the layoff, a stat you had used yesterday successfully with David Fox and Lipstick City, that he might be just about ready to fire his best shot, third off the bench combined with the drop.
Yeah, I wasn't enamored with his last couple of races, but if he runs back to the old French Quarter, like you mentioned,
yeah,
he can be right there at the wire. But early entry, maybe he should be a little further up on my ticket, but we'll see how that race plays out. Always like having dueling best bets.
Absolutely. Makes it a lot of fun. And needless to say, you know who's got the shorter price best bet on top. It's this guy right there. Now let's...
this chalk-eating weasel,
right.
Are you kidding me?
All right, field of 10 as we close out the day. We've got about a minute left here. We've got some 2-year-olds in this $65,000 maiden special weight. Again, it is nice as we inch closer and closer in the South Florida 2-year-old scene to the opening leg of the Florida Sires Series on August 4th, Saturday, August 4th. It's nice as this program continues to evolve and continues to blossom. Who do you go with here? What are you doing?
I went with Entirely, a daughter point of entry debuting for Jonathan Thomas, a series of solid, really workouts showing on the Bridlewood Farm turf course. The freshman faces the boys with Lasix, Emiciel Jaramillo in the saddle. My whippersnapper in second, but I found the stat after you're done.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Elaborate.
Mark Cassie, 2-year-olds, first-time starters on the turf, right here at beautiful Gulfstream Park. He's 1 for 24. That's 4%, 33% in the money, and only a 16-cent return of investment. I'm going to watch that one for a while.
Yeah, no kidding. I wonder how many horses in this sample as we continue to move along here as a year-round, essentially a year-round circuit, or at least a year-round singular track in South Florida. I'm wondering how many horses may have run in December as opposed to how many horses in that sample ran maybe the last 2 or 3 spring-summer seasons at Gulfstream Park. But a good nugget there, no doubt. This is a trainer certainly considered among the upper echelon when it comes to the United States. But for whatever the reason, his 2-year-old firsters on the turf in South Florida have needed a race or two to get going. And like you, I'm going to take the 7 Entirely. It's the connections. It's the point of entry. Who's got, by the way, his star running tomorrow at Belmont, horse by the name of Analyze It for Chad Brown.
Yeah, Analyze It, really nice horse. So we'll see how that horse runs, but let's see how Entirely runs. Maybe we can get this Rainbow Six home today.
I hope that's the case, my friend. We're about 30 minutes out from the first race of June on our opening Twilight Friday of the spring and summer here at Gulfstream Park. I'm not sure if David Bowie and Pete Aiello have ever been muttered in the same sentence before, but that is going to be the case because it is time for those Friday changes.